Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are here for our afternoon lecture
Is
on the
it
third
just?
day
Oh,
of
sorry.
web fundamentals.
Sorry. Never mind.
Okay, all right, okay, all right. We're here, afternoon lecture, third day web fundamentals, and let's get started with our demo. Originally, I was thinking of demoing something like a website, but that's what I'm doing tomorrow anyway. So I picked something related to what I would have us do. And so let's go ahead and get started. Um, when we create a website, or when we are following one of the assignments, completing one of the assignments that we're given, we have to break down and analyze how we can divide up the web page into sections, and then how we are going to attack those different sections using the rules that we are given. So this, for example, this is a artwork inspired by Pierre Mondrian. It's a French artist that will be creating some of his artwork today in our group sessions. This is not one of his, but this is one inspired by his. So I'm going to attempt to do this one. It should be maybe a 20-30 minute demonstration, not too long, and then we're going to break out into groups to do something, like I said, similar to yesterday. So my first thought is that I want to look at this and think, okay, there is an overall container for everything. So I know I need to make a container div. All right. I'll create a container div within a body. That's what the red represents there, for the whole border, that black border. Now I want to cut this into pieces and tackle each section as I can figure out how. So the next section I would say is this inner rectangle, this row at the top, this inner red square. Maybe I'll make that a different color. This row here, okay? I'm going to make this the top row, and then I'm going to make the one below it the bottom row. So I'm going to have two rows within my container. One on the top that you see here in the blue highlighted, one on the bottom with the green highlight. Once I have that divided into two rows, I'm going to work on one row at a time. Now in this first row here, I can imagine that this should be divided into two as well. So I'll have, let me see here, what color? I have one square here, this one that has the blue, yellow, and red. And I have this square here. So in this top row, there would be two divs. And in the first div, then I would have two rows, just like we have for this whole entire thing. We have an outer row, this one here, a top row, sorry, and a bottom row. And in this top row, we have two divs. So you're dividing this thing down and figuring out which ones are going to be in sets of rows and which ones are going to be stacked one on top of another. And that's a lot like how you'll cut a website into pieces and think to yourself, are these sections going to be in a row, or are these going to be stacked one on top of another? And how should I divide it so that when I am coding, I am not losing track or getting confused of what needs to be aligned where? Okay, so let's work on this image a little bit. So let's erase all this stuff and clear the zoom drawings. Okay, so I'll take this image and I'll have only my text editor here. And I'm going to create two files in here. index.html, style.css. Let's say close all. Close this. All right. Okay, so here let's create our HTML page. All right, and we want to link to CSS. So we'll say link CSS. Here is the main body, so I'm going to say main container, and then comment this. And then in here, I'm going to create the div, the class of container. Now I'm going to format my document. And target my container and give it a background color as well as height and width. So I'm going to say dot container, background color red, height 200 pixels, width 200 pixels. Okay, here it is. All right, so here's my starting point. This is my square that I'm trying to make look like this here. Let me just shorten this. All right, so I know I need to make it a little bit bigger in order to meet this size. So what I need to do is increase the size, make it 500 by 500. And that's about the same size. Okay. I also want to center my square in the middle of my window. And the way to do that is by using margin, the rule margin 0 auto. Margin 0 auto. It's like a tongue twister for me. And now the block will be centered in its container. So that horizontal centering, remember this rule here is really handy. Margin 0 auto. You have to have both the 0 and the auto after margin in order to make it center. And I'll be using this more often now and encouraging you guys to use this as well when creating web pages. At least for this WebFund course, then you can find better ways to make better web pages. But for now, I'll encourage you guys to use this rule whenever centering like our main content of our web page. In this case, we're just copying this square block. All right, when we said we wanted to divide this into two halves, so we'll have to create that upper row and bottom row. So I will say div times 2, because I need 2 divs at this level. All right, let's space them out. First one, I was going to say, let's call this one top row. And we'll copy it for the bottom and just change this to bottom. Now we have 2 rows. And in these 2 rows, I need to target them here. We need to give them some depth. So I'll say top row The top row is about, it's like it's like 1/3 of the block, right? I would say 1/3 of the block. So 1/3 of 500 would be, suddenly I can't do math. So it would be 15. So I would need to make it 150 pixels. Yeah, the width, I want to make the full width. And I also want to add a background color. Let's make it blue. Okay, so here's my top block. I actually could make it a little taller. Okay, that's way too much. And one more change and we're good. Okay. All right. So this is it. Now I have my 2 rows. I'm going to work on top row first. After I complete this top row, then I'll move on to the bottom. So the top row we said has 2 squares in it, a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So let's work on making 2 divs inside the blue top row here. Okay, and here is where naming gets a little bit difficult because we want to give it a unique name that makes sense. So any suggestions for naming this top left square here? Maybe we should call it top left square.
Yeah, top left block.
There we
left.
go. You guys are my rubber duck. All right, top left square. And if you say div dot top dash left dash square, it'll create the div for you with that class name. So if you type div dot and then the name of the class, it's a shortcut there. Okay, top left square. Okay, so we have the top left square, and what are we going to call its neighbor to the right? White rectangle. How about that? White rectangle. So that will be a neighbor to this guy, so it has to be at the same level as this guy. Div, we said white rectangle. Okay, that's our white rectangle now. And now we have to target them on CSS to give them some color. So the top left square, I'm going to color it yellow for now. I'm just going to make the whole thing yellow and the white one white. Top left square. And by the way I'm naming the CSS with dashes, that's the convention. There's no official rule, but you want to follow this convention. CSS dashes. Top left square. Height is going to be the height of its parent. 80 pixels. And I think its width is going to be also 180 pixels because it's a square. Oh, and the color. Background color, yellow. All right, so we have our square and we want to color our white square here. So we say dot white rectangle. And the height is going to be the full height. The width is going to be 500 minus 180. Any math whizzes?
220. No, 320.
Can't believe I just believed you there. It's okay. Now I believe. All right. So background color white. No, I appreciate it. I was just being lazy and you saved me there. Oh, okay. So now what's going on? Now we have the white rectangle. It's the shape of this blue rectangle here, right? It needs to go up there because when we create divs and their neighbors, they are not going to go side by side unless we tell them to.
So display flex
Yes, on who?
on the yellow top left square.
Flex on your parents.
Yes, flex. Yes, remember the saying. Flexible parent has their children in order. So who's the parent? It's the blue. The blue contains the yellow and the white. Right?
Okay. This is something I was actually kind of struggling with.
Okay, so that's good that you asked. Yeah, think about this analogy. Maybe it'll stick with you this way. Like, do you ever go to a grocery store or a market and there's an unruly kid running around and they're like screaming and crying and they almost like hit you or something and you just want to say, where's your parents? Right? Like then you can say, okay, if the parents were more flexible, they could have their kids in order, right? They can know where they can shop and supervise their children. So not to hate on struggling parents, but I'm trying to use this as an analogy because we are thinking we want to get these in order. So we have to take control of the parent. The parent is the top row, which we said was blue. So if we say display flex, now we have the white up here. And we want a border around our whole container. So we're going to say outline 2 pixels, solid black. Okay, so we want to make it more than 2 pixels. Let's make it 12. Okay,
Could you explain one more time why it was why you did flex on the blue instead of the yellow square?
right, because the blue square, top row that we see here, when we click on a div, it'll show us where it begins and ends. And within this beginning and ending, 14 and 21, we have top left square and the white rectangle. These are the children. These here are the children of top row because they are inside top row. Does that make sense so far?
Got it. Thank you.
So these are the children of these. So they will go side by side next to each other if you say display flex on the container, the parent. Okay, so let's continue. I'm gonna put black border is good for now. Let's put a border around the square here on the left. So let's find the yellow block and say outline 10 pixels. No, let's make it 5. No, 10's good. 10 pixels, solid black. Oh, it didn't go inside there. What's going on there? Is it because is the white one on here? And when you need help seeing behind the scenes, what you want to do is inspect. So I think
Also on the inspecting, is that an add-on?
No,
Or-
this in all browsers have this inspect. So this is like lifting the hood in the car. You get to see behind the scenes, right? All browsers have that. We just haven't had to use it until now that we've become developers.
So look, I'm on Safari. Does that have it?
No, and it does, but at actually, you should use Chrome. Chrome's a better browser for this tool. Safari does have it, but I would recommend you change. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what my issue is the rule outline. I'm going to change it from outline to border. Now we have a square. border adds, it's part of that box model. So it adds to the whole area of it itself. That's why it's now leaking into the red. But I think what my issue was the size of the rectangle and the square in this box. Okay. Let's just put a same border around the white one, and that should work. It'll hide it. I put this border here. Okay, that's good enough. So we have this. Now we want to work on this top left section. So we have the top row in the square and the bottom row in the square. So let's go inside of our square. We're going to say two divs, div times 2. The first div in our top left square is going to be this row with the blue square and the yellow block. Okay, so on my top left square, we have our square top left square top row. Okay, now it's going to get complicated. Top left square top row. Let's target that now. Top left square top. And actually I'm encouraging a bad habit at this point, so I'm going to stop. What I'm going to do is just copy it. Just copy it. It's not lazy to copy, it's accurate. Eliminate human error. Okay, top left square, and I even spelled it wrong here. That's how. Square top row. Okay, now what do I want to do? I want to color this top row of the square. I have to give it some dimensions. So I know the square is 180 by 180. So let's cut 180 in half. Its height is going to be 18 divided by 2 is 9. So 90. Height 90 pixels. The width is going to be the full width. Background color, we'll say blue. All right, so here's what we have so far. I think I can extend it a little bit further to make it more accurate. 100. Okay. And now I need 2 sections within this top row here. I need this top left one to be a square, a blue square, and its neighbor to the right. So I'm going to call this one tiny blue square because it's a tiny blue square on the whole thing. And tiny yellow rectangle. Okay, that's going to be my naming convention. So for the top row, in the top left square top row, we got to go in here and say div dot tiny blue square. And its neighbor is the tiny yellow rectangle. All right, let's open this up. How big is the tiny blue square going to be? I'm not reading the chat, so if you guys want to say it out loud. How big should the tiny blue square be?
50 by 50.
50 by 50? Is that a guess?
Yeah, it's an estimation. I'm not.
We can just use the dimensions that we already predefined. So it's going to be as tall as the top left square, top row. So its height is going to be 100. And if it's a
So it's
square,
100, yeah.
yep. I'll make it green for now. And I'll fix the coloring at the end. What I want to make sure is that everything is in place. Then I can go back and change all the coloring.
Didn't we also adjust the borders? I feel like some are a lot thicker than others.
Yeah, we can adjust the borders. And this is the direction that I'm going in. Do you see how I would start this project? Now we have the whole top row. All I need to do is add some black borders here. And we have this top row section completed. Bottom row, this is going to be a little bit of work too. So maybe we should tackle this together as well. So let's add the black borders and then continue. Well, a general rule when you're doing something like this is save the details. Save the minor details for editing at the very end of your allotted time. Get the big picture first. Right now, the big picture is to get the shapes in their place.
I have a quick question regarding the border numbers that you're referencing. Couldn't you also just put that outline or that border, if it's going to be the same for all those children in the parent container?
Yeah, what I could do is actually go to,
Would it be top row or?
I can target the all selector. And I could say outline 12 pixels solid black. See what this looks like. And now I just have to get rid of these. See if this fixed it. Yeah, it's fixing it. The only difference now is that there's an outline on the body. So we can change that by saying body outline none. Okay. Except for this bottom row. Is that something I didn't add? What is that row? Here, hold on. I'm just taking a quick detour to figure out what this black.
That's the body.
That's the HTML. Oh, okay. So I just need to say body, comma, HTML. Here we are. Okay, so I think so far it's coming along. Colors are not the same, but we can change that at the end. Now we just need to create this bottom section, and then we're going to break out into groups. Okay, so how are we going to do this? I think what we have to do is let me just outline here my steps. I'm going to create 3 blocks side by side next to each other. Okay, so 3 divs in this row. And the center one, I just have 1 div inside of it that's blue. Okay, so 3 divs in this row. In the center one, I'm going to make the top half blue. All right, so let's clear this. Bottom row. We said 3 divs, div, times 3. All right, let's format this document. Okay. Bottom left one is going to be called big yellow rectangle. I just call it big yellow. Middle one is just going to be called middle. And this one is going to be called big red rectangle. Okay, so we have to target its container to make them side by side next to each other. But before we do that, let's just create their sizes. So big yellow is going to be the height of its container. Where is it living in? It's in the bottom row. So let's see how big our bottom row is. Did we make a bottom row yet? No, we didn't make a bottom row. It's the remaining space of the top row. So 500 minus 180. What did we say that was again? $320. Height. 320 pixels. Width. Okay, so now this whole square is 500 by 500. So I would say this is a quarter of,
350.
yeah. So what's a quarter of 500? About, what's 25 divided into 17 and a half? No,
175.
13 and a half.
Ben said 125.
Fuck yeah, 125.
Background color is going to be blue violet. Okay. And our right one is going to be very similar to that. Let's work on the middle one though. Middle. Height 320. Width. This one's going to be half of it. So we're going to say 250. Background color. Gold. And then big red. Oh no, I said bottom row.
Yeah, shouldn't the width of the bottom row be the complete bottom, like
Yeah,
full
this is
500?
this should be big yellow. I'm sorry, I was conflating two things at once, and sometimes that can happen. So be careful of that. Let's work on the bottom row. The whole bottom row has the width of the square and height of 320. Background color. Deep pink. Okay. So now we have bottom row, the yellow one, this one, the purple is the yellow, and then we have this yellow one to be the middle one, and we need to create one more, the red. So let's create the red. It's very similar to the yellow. Height, 320 pixels. Width, 125 pixels. Background color, aqua, sure. Now we need to make them side by side next to each other. So we see who the parent is. The parent that should hold all of them is the pink one. So we say display flex on the pink one. Okay, now they fit in there inside the pink one. And all that I need to do now is change the colors to make, oh, the middle one. The middle one needs a division. Okay, here we go. Create a div in here. We'll call it middle top half. Okay, and we'll place it right next to middle. We'll say middle top half. And the height should be half of it. So 320 and 2 is okay. And let's make the background color blue. Now we just need to go back and change all the colors. So let's find that green one that we see. Let's make it the color blue. Okay, the one to the right. The yellow one, we want it to make yellow. Where's tiny yellow? Top left square. Top row. Top left square. White green two. Okay, top left row. Tiny blue square. We made it blue. Did we even color oh, we want to make the back of top row yellow. So this is the container. And we can make the container background color yellow. So now we just need to color tiny blue square and make it red. No, it's called top left square. We need to make this red. Okay, now it's looking more accurate. Does anyone have any questions so far on the process while I wrap up?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Okay.
I mean, it might sound silly, but when you label your classes like top left, corner, top right corner,
Yes.
does the computer know like where exactly are you talking about, or
Nope. Has
Okay.
no idea. I'm only talking to myself because I'm the only programmer in this instance. When you're creating classes for something in the environment, you can't think of half-witted names. You have to think of a very accurate name to its purpose. I'm doing this to show you how you can name it anything, name it something relevant to its position or its purpose for your own sake when you're programming.
yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out is like how do you know where to find that position that you're creating while you're making the object?
Because how do I know the position where I'm working exactly when I'm creating the object, like what layer of divs I'm in?
Yes.
The way I know is by orienting myself with the name. So the container is going to be the container for everything. So I know that's going to be the whole square.
Mm-hmm.
The top row is what I have called it, top row. I just have to remember the names that I'm calling it and how it relates to what I'm imagining and where it should go, what it is and where it should go. So as soon as I think of a name, I think of something for myself catchy that I would know, okay, this is the purpose of this thing here. I need to go inside this thing if I'm going to create the top left square or the white rectangle to the right of it.
Gotcha.
So I give it names that I would know its purpose, so I can find out where it is in the hierarchy of divs here.
Okay.
And I did this all using flex, right? I only determined, are these going to be stacked one on top of another, or are they going to be side by side next to each other? Who's the parent so that I can make it go side by side next to each other?
Josh.
Yes.
So when it comes to projects like these, I always struggle with the starting point. So what's exactly the best way to decide on the color for the container?
For the container, you saw
Yeah.
how I did it. I picked arbitrary colors just to get down my thoughts to code as soon as possible. I wasn't fidgeting with making it color perfect exact. I would go at the end and then change all the colors to be the consistent color scheme that you see here.
Mhm.
So I would go at the end and change it. When you're building it, you can, if that's how you like to work, do it step by step. I like to do the big picture and finish the details at the end.
Okay.
Like when you were saying, okay, you need to fix the outline. I knew that it did need fixing, but I didn't want to waste time working on a small detail when I have just 30-40 minutes to show you guys how to create something like this. Okay, so what I want you guys to do now is to create your own version of this. I'm going to send an image in Discord. It's going to be different than this one. I'll split you guys into groups like we did algos this morning. It'll be random. And we'll have, like we mentioned for algos, the driver, the navigator, and the presenter. So the navigator's instructing the person writing the code, who is the driver, and the third person in the group should be presenting. So everyone's involved in this process. No one can get left out. So I'm going to send the actual P.A. Mondrian artwork, not something inspired by him. And we're going to build his artwork using Flex. Okay, this will give us practice for building a website. Okay, so let me stop the recording and create these groups.